Welcome everyone, Costini here with a discussion about Total War Warhammer 3, Thrones of Decay, patch 5.0. Creative Assembly has teased the possibility that we might get a new free Ledgering Lord that absolutely no one has figured out yet. They posted it in this blog about Malachi, going over what they are adding for him, going over what they're doing for the dwarves. They didn't necessarily go in too much detail with the dwarves, by the way, in this blog post, because well, I think they realized a lot of people have already covered that on YouTube. And interesting, they didn't even post a trailer for that. Yeah, I think CA has really been pushing a lot of things with this update. It's a massive update. But if we got 2 free Ledgering Lords, that would be pretty damn incredible. But of course, plenty of people are reacting to this and saying, oh, it's Epidemius, right? Because we already know he's the free Ledgering Lord of patch 5.0. We know where he is, we know what he does. We saw him in the trailer. So it would be pretty awkward, I suppose, from a marketing standpoint if they were referring to Epidemius. They haven't officially announced him yet, but come on, really, everyone knows it's Epidemius is in the game. So that's what I most likely expect. I would not be, like, yeah, it would be great to get 2 free Ledgering Lords with 5.0, but let me be very clear on this. What we're getting with 5.0, what we're getting for Dwarves, Empire, Nurgle, what we're getting with the DLC, like both the paid and free stuff, is already incredible, really. Hopefully I don't get into too much trouble for saying that, review embargo and all that, but still, it's a lot of content, right? So we're getting a lot, so it wouldn't be disappointing if we didn't get something, but it would be pretty damn incredible if we did. Now, I can say this as a content creator that's part of their new content creator program. CA hasn't told us anything. Like, if they had, I wouldn't be able to talk about it, basically. Embargo, NDAs, all that. So, they haven't told us anything. No content creator, as far as I know, regardless of the tier, because there's different tiers for content creators. Some people get ability to post stuff earlier. But no content creator, as far as I know, regardless of the tier, knows what's going on. So if CA is adding another Ledgering Lord, they haven't told us. Now, maybe they're just looking to spring a surprise on us. Maybe something like would be pretty exciting, I admit. Yes, it's good to have information about the game when you're covering it as a content creator and know what's in it. And we do have access to patch, we have access to the DLC, but sometimes actually having a surprise like this is nice, even from a content creator perspective. We ultimately do still play the game, so that level of excitement, it would be nice, I'm not gonna lie. But most likely, from my perspective and the perspective of many other people, it's Epidemius, and they just wrote this in a weird fashion. Whatever. Despite the fact that everyone knows it's Epidemius, it's been revealed from the very beginning. Like, we've had access to the patch and DLC for 2 weeks. Keep in mind, though, they have been updating things. It's not like we're playing the exact same version that we got, like, over 2 weeks ago. No. Things have changed. Things have been updated. Things have been fixed. And there is going to be, like, one more patch for 5.0. Like, the final version of 5.0 is probably going to be on launch day, right? Because we got that text development progress, all that at least is going to be removed. Other things that have been mentioned are going to be fixed, like issues with getting Gotrek, for instance, through his quest battle, all that. So there are obviously things with respect to that. Most likely Epidemius, though, but let's go into just speculation. I'm just going to go with that. What could CA do? What are the possibilities? Well, for a lot of people in the community, what would be popular would be things like the Red Duke, Todbringer, Tanquil, and a couple of others that I'll just mention. Like, there's many choices, like some Imperial characters and all that. Now, I do note that if there is going to be a new free Lord, it's probably going to be related in some way to the Dwarves. So I would take away something like the Red Duke, I would take away something like Todbringer or any Imperial character. One of the reasons I would discount the possibility of someone like Todbringer is because the Empire is already, filled to the brim with lords, and they just moved Gelt because it was too crowded there. Maybe they just want to make Gelt unique and free the room up for a new lord. Okay, that could be it. But if they already moved Gelt because it's too crowded, adding another one, Averland, Midland, doesn't matter where it is, because there's possibilities for Averland, there's a possibility for Midland Utadi, all that. But if they added Toddy, they would really have to change what's going on in that area. of his campaign with Kazrak, Festus, Karl Franz, so I don't necessarily think it's going to be Toddy. Other possibilities. Well, there's Joseph Bugman as a real possibility in more ways than one, and I'm not pulling this one just from thin air. Like, when I'm talking about these things, I'm talking about things that we have expected for a long time, so like Toddy or Red Duke. Why wouldn't it be Red Duke? Well, I think vampire counts could really use their own rework. I mean, they're a good race. They're a strong race. Of all the races that need improvements, they're not necessarily there, but they could certainly use some improvements, right, to make them more fun, not necessarily fix stuff. But why Joseph Bookman? Well, let me explain why. First off, he's one of the oldest dwarf characters in the lore. He's a very popular character, and he would be fairly awkward to add as a paid DLC, because that's one of the things to mention about like paid DLC stuff or DLC stuff. Like, if it's going to be free, it would be something that wouldn't necessarily require as much effort or would not make sense as a paid one. So I think Joseph would make sense as a free one as opposed to paid one, because we already have his Rangers. It's part of the King of the Warlord. Sure, if you don't own that DLC, you might be affected, but regardless, you know, it's one of the cheapest DLCs out there because it was literally the first one for Warhammer 1, as opposed, you know, with the exception of Warriors of Chaos, right, which was a pre-order bonus anyway. But as people noted, we saw his emblem in the freaking trailer. That's his sigil, right? That's his sigil right there. That's a miniature on the left. That's his sigil in the Thrones of Decay trailer. Now, just because it's in trailer, we've seen that with repeater handguns, right? How they've changed that. We've seen that it's not necessarily final, but again, you know, Joseph Bookman, he's been mentioned quite a bit in the games. He would make sense, and quite very interesting. There's also Karakazorn. There was a leak, apparently, related to Karakazorn. Like, I remember, like, months ago, weeks ago, that people were digging for the files, and they found something related to Karakazorn. So it could very well be Joseph Bookman might be added, if they're going to add anything. And then there's Neferata. Why do I mention Neferata? Well, I mention Neferata because the Silver Pinnacle has been... So I would find it pretty awkward to add the Vampire Count's Ledger in lore for the fact that, you know, Vampire Counts could use improvements. But if they're going to add one, I think Neferata would make sense, because you get the new grudge with the Silver Pinnacle that literally mentions her. And you look at the Silver Pinnacle in game, I'm just going to get into that in a second, but it's like an ideal freaking start position. It's something that screams starting position right now. So Neferata, some people have suggested Tanquil, like you have a big focus on Gotrek and Felix, their adventures, like Malachi's adventures, as they called it with him, like, yeah, there's Gotrek and Felix's adventures, let's be real there. So we got the major focus on maybe Tanquil, but, you know, I think if you're going to add Tanquil, you would have a focus on Vermin Lords. So those are some of the possibilities, some other characters on that. I don't think it would necessarily be an Imperial character, because they've already done a lot for the Empire. I mean, they've done a lot for the Dwarves as well, but I think, you know, Bugman would make sense, or a non-Imperial character, so Dwarf, or, you know, other races, Skaven, like, yeah, it would make sense with Tanquil to be a paid DLC character, from my perspective, and focus on Vermin Lords when they were doing that, but could happen. So let me just go into the game and give further arguments on this particular subject. Okay, so in Warhammer 3, if we look at Karakazorn, one of the reasons I make a point, so some leak related to Karakazorn, and it has this lovely, lovely landmark, the Karakazorn Grey Hole. Karakazorn, okay, gives you beer. What is Bugman known for? Beer. So that would be pretty solid, and this would actually work pretty well as a starting location. Like, you'd go over there and fight Amblespeak, and then you'd beat up Greases probably. Or you'd deal with the situation over here. You are very, very close to Grimgor. I mean, you're not the closest to Grimgor, so you do have some buffer between you and the walking Juggernaut. But having a Dwarven campaign that would focus you on Grimgor, that would work quite well. And another reason I would also bring up Bugman is because we do have this grudge against the Chaos Dwarves in Grimgor. So if you had the Legendary Lord, it doesn't even necessarily have to be Bugman, but if you had a Legendary Lord starting Karakazorn, which, interestingly enough, is considered a key dwarf settlement over there, And it's the only key dwarf settlement in the Mountains of Morn, by the way. Well, maybe... No. Actually, yeah, Carrick Vrag is also one, so there's 2 of them. So if you had a key dwarf settlement over there, and one that's going to fall under control of Grimoire, well, that would be interesting. And it would certainly make dealing with this grudge quite interesting. Dwarves controlling Tsar Nagrund very early on in their campaign, defeating this army. Oh, that would be fun, wouldn't it? Pretty damn fun. I imagine you would have mountain. You have wasteland. You'd have mountain, right? Maybe frozen as well. That would make a good amount of sense. And you'd get to beat up Tamarkan as well, because yeah, he fights Kolek in his campaign. With respect to Neferata, of course, like as I mentioned, you do have this grudge, and this grudge is interesting. So, like, beyond the fact that Neferata's mentioned, so what happens when you start building this? It's like vast hordes, like endgame crisis, or no, actually continuous endgame crisis style armies, 1 or 2 at the time. I think it's like 2, maybe 3 at the time every turn spawn for 10 turns. This is like, I thought this would be easy, right? No, it is not easy. It is quite damn brutal. But, well, lots of money and experience gained from that. Still, it would work if they added Neferata as a Legendary Lord, because, like, this has been the case since the Chaos Dwarfs came out a year ago, that you've had, like, the Vampire Counts controlling Silver Pinnacle at war with these guys, so this screams starting position. Like, Carrick Zorn would work, but this, like, literally is yelling at you full-on start position all the freaking way. So if it would be a lord, it would be Neferata. What about, Tankwall and all that? That would be awkward, because like this is the thing. If they're adding a second free legendary lord, it would be without requiring them to make major map changes. So where would you fit Tankwall? I guess that's a big question. Maybe over here, potentially in the Skull Road. I mean, could work, but yeah, just a thing to mention, right? There would be some changes. Whereas, like here, you could just literally give a faction control of Karakazorn and it would work. Probably would piss off the modders that, have made the Karakazorn mod, but yeah, well, that's just how things go right there, ultimately. Toddy, yeah, you'd need to make changes to Midland, significant changes. I'm not sure I would want to start a war with Kazrak and have to fight to control all of Midland from the very start. Maybe if Kazrak was moved. There's a possibility of a Empire Lord in Averland if they wanted to, but, that would interfere with Elspeth, so not really all that great. But that's what I think. I think it makes most sense if it's going to be a Lord. It's probably dwarf related in some way, so I think Neferata has a strong case because she does control the Silver Pinnacle, and it is dwarf related. Carrick Zorn has a strong case because of leaks, trailer footage, all that, and Bugman just making sense in a lot of ways. I would say, like, yeah, if it was another dwarf lord, that would be pretty damn great. But, I mean, adding another Imperial Lord would also help fill up their Legendary Lord roster, because, yeah, we do get Elspeth, but, yeah, now we have 4 Lords, so having 5 Lords besides Elspeth, that would be pretty good, right? But we'll see what CA does decide to do, if they do anything. This is all speculation, remember, just making that particular point. But who knows? Maybe we'll be surprised by the answer. Or maybe we won't be, and it's just Epidemius. That's what I most likely expect. That's my working assumption, that it's very likely going to be Epidemius. But if it's something else, well, wouldn't that be a really nice surprise? Costine signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and let me know what you guys think about all of this. Is it likely going to be Epidemius? And if it's someone else, who do you think should be in? Who do you think will be there, most likely? Not who you would like to see, though I'd also be interested in that. But who do you think would make most sense for them to add in? Not who would, who we'd like a lot as the players, but who would make a lot of sense for them to add from a gameplay standpoint on this map. I mean, you could also add something in the Vulture Mountains, potentially, though. Rapans and Arkan, this Thunderdome is already nasty enough. Do you really want two Dwarf Lords next to each other? Nah, I'm not quite sure you do. So yeah, stay tuned for more.